But first, let's take a look at the headlines. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says a humanitarian aid corridor from Cyprus to Gaza could open as early as this Sunday. Now, this comes amid growing fears of famine in the Palestinian territory. Former UK Prime Minister Theresa May steps down as MP and won't seek re-election, becoming the latest Conservative Party member to signal their departure ahead of general elections. Hong Kong issues new national security law with tougher penalties for those convicted of sedition, treason, and espionage as activists raise concerns over China-led crackdowns. South Korea's military conducts live-fire drills involving fighter jets against the North's missile threats after Kim Jong-Un was seen guiding artillery firing drills. And Australia's iconic Great Barrier Reef is suffering another mass bleaching event as warming seas threaten the spectacular home to thousands of marine species. We begin here in the United States, where last night President Joe Biden delivered a fiery State of the Union address as he gears up for a re-election showdown with Donald Trump. In fact, the speech bore little resemblance to his past State of the Union addresses. Instead, this was 68 minutes of President Biden at his most energetic, a commander-in-chief eager to engage with Republicans and ease Democratic jitters about his political prospects. President Biden's list of objectives was long, and it included his accomplishments in office and a look ahead to a second-term agenda. But of course, the highlight of the speech was his attacks on none other than Donald Trump. In fact, there were 13 of them in all without even mentioning Trump by name. The president, however, laid out three challenges: the war in Ukraine, the January 6th insurrection, and reproductive rights. But he lambasted Donald Trump for his statements about encouraging Russia to invade NATO.
Now my predecessor, a former Republican president, tells Putin, quote, "Do whatever the hell you want." That's a quote. A former president actually said that, bowing down to a Russian leader. I think it's outrageous, it's dangerous, and it's unacceptable.
He also sent a message to Moscow in his speech saying that he will not bow down to Vladimir Putin.
Watching. If the United States walks away, it will put Ukraine at risk. Europe is at risk. The free world will be at risk, emboldening others to do what they wish to do us harm. My message to President Putin, who I've known for a long time, is simple. We will not walk away. We will not bow down. I will not bow down.
Now, shortly after, President Biden slammed Donald Trump over his claims of 2020 election fraud. He called Trump's lies the gravest threat to democracy and accused the former president and Republicans of trying to rewrite history surrounding the January 6th Capitol riots.
History is watching, just like history watched 3 years ago on January 6th, when insurrectionists stormed this very Capitol and placed a dagger to the throat of American democracy. Many of you were here on that darkest of days. We all saw with our own eyes the insurrectionists were not patriots. They'd come to stop the peaceful transfer of power, to overturn the will of the people. January 6th lies about the 2020 election and the plots to steal the election posed a gravest threat to U.S. democracy since the Civil War. But they failed. America stood.
And in a direct response to Trump on immigration, President Biden said he will not demonize migrants as he implored Republicans to support a bipartisan border security proposal.
I will not demonize immigrants saying they are poison in the blood of our country. I will not separate families. I will not ban people because of their faith. Unlike my predecessor on my first day in office, I introduced a comprehensive bill to fix our immigration system. Take a look at it. It has all these and more. Secure the border. Provide a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, and so much more. But unlike my predecessor, I know who we are as Americans. We're the only nation in the world with a heart and soul that draws from old and new.
Meanwhile, as Biden laid down the gauntlet, former President Donald Trump was posting running commentary on social media. No surprise there. In fact, Trump made roughly 4 dozen posts during the address, ranging from immigration and inflation to even Biden's coughing and his hair. He also gave a rebuttal to President Biden's address, blaming the president for what he called a horror show on illegal migration to the country.
What's happened now is a horror show. The country, our country, is being laughed at all over the world. Over the past 3 years, Biden has actively aided and abetted the importation of millions and millions of illegal alien migrants and resettled them into your communities. Joe Biden is on the run from his record and lying like crazy to try and escape accountability for the horrific devastation he and his party have created.
Meanwhile, in the House chamber, House Republicans heckled Biden. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene interrupted the president, asking him to speak directly about Laken Riley, a nursing student who was allegedly killed by an undocumented immigrant in Georgia.
In November, my team began serious negotiation with a bipartisan group of senators. The result was a bipartisan bill with the toughest set of border security reforms we've ever seen. Oh, you don't think so? Oh, you don't like that bill, huh? That conservatives got together and said it was a good bill? I'll be darned. That's amazing. The Border Patrol Union has endorsed this bill. The Federal Chamber of Commerce is, yeah. You're saying low. Look at the facts. I know you know how to read. Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of the thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand.
Now, President Biden also made abortion rights a major focus of his address. In fact, he vowed to codify Roe v. Wade if given a Congress that, quote, that supports the right to choose.
My predecessor came to office determined to see Roe v. Wade overturned. He's the reason it was overturned, and he brags about it. Look at the chaos that has resulted. If you, the American people, send me a Congress that supports the right to choose, I promise you, I'll restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land again.
And lastly, the president also responded to critics who have been citing concerns about his age. Take a listen.
I know it may not look like it, but I've been around a while. When you get to be my age, certain things become clearer than ever. I know the American story. In my career, I've been told I was too young. By the way, they didn't let me on the Senate elevators for votes sometimes. Not a joke. And I've been told I'm too old. Whether young or old, I've always known what endures. I've known our North Star. I'm optimistic. I really am. I'm optimistic, Nancy. My fellow Americans, the issue facing our nation isn't how old we are. It's how old are our ideas.
Make no mistake, the president came out swinging, even at one point taking a jab directly at the Supreme Court. The election is 8 months away, and President Biden is announcing to the naysayers, and especially to Donald Trump and his MAGA base, he is in fact ready to fight for his job. 5 months of unabated war, thousands of lives lost, hundreds of thousands injured, and millions of lives devastated. Gaza today has turned into a hellscape. With the mounting trauma of war, its people are also facing hunger and starvation, as only a trickle of aid has been able to get through. Frustrated over obstruction of aid deliveries and a worsening humanitarian crisis, the United States has announced an emergency mission to build a temporary dock on the Gaza shoreline, allowing aid deliveries on a large scale. Our next report explains.
For Muslims across the world, Ramadan is a time of prayers, joy, and evenings full of scrumptious meals. But all Gazans wish for this year is an end to their suffering. 5 months of war has left the Palestinian enclave devastated, with tens of thousands of people killed. Much of the territory has become a hellscape of bombed-out neighborhoods and mass graves dug in the sand. There have been dire warnings of mass starvation. Aid agencies say children are dying from hunger, which has reached catastrophic levels. There is lack of food, water, and medical services added to the mounting exhaustion and trauma caused by the war. Aid deliveries have collapsed, with only a fraction of the food needed getting in. The United Nations has warned of famine if aid deliveries are not increased.
إحنا انصابت فينا أمراض ومش قادرين نعالجها بالمرة، فيش حتى كمان دواء إنه نعالجها. وإحنا إيش ذنبنا نعيش في هذه الحياة؟ إيش ذنبنا نعيشها؟ يعني هي قد ضاعت سنة من حياتي، أنا إيش استفدت من الحرب هذه؟ إيش استفدنا إحنا؟ دمرنا، مدارسنا راحت، أهالينا راحوا، كلهم راحوا. طب إيش استفدنا من هاي الحرب كلها؟ إيش استفدنا؟ إحنا كشعب إيش استفدنا من هاي الحرب؟ إيش ذنبنا إحنا نعيش هاي الحرب وهاي المعاناة؟ كلهم قاعدين في بيوتهم مسيدين مكرمين، وإحنا قاعدين بنعاني هنا. إيش ذنبنا إحنا؟ مش إحنا المفروض نكون في مدارسنا القدا وفي بيوتنا؟ إيش ذنبنا؟
إحنا بنعاني من العنف، من القهر، من الذل، من الإهانة، من أقصى أنواع التعذيب من الاحتلال. إحنا مش بطلع بدنا إشي، إحنا نازحين من شمال غزة. إحنا كنا معززات مكرمات في بيوتنا، كل إشي بنطلبه كان متوفر لنا، بيجينا لحد عنا. الآن ما فيش إشي عنا، لا مية، لا كهرباء، لا غاز، لا أكل. كل إشي إلنا بنعاني فيه بأقصى درجات الاضطهاد، الظلم. يعني الواحد إيش بده يحكي الواحد؟ يعني حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل.
The United States says it will build a temporary dock on the Gaza shoreline to allow the delivery of humanitarian aid on a large scale. The emergency mission, led by the US military, will set up a pier that will be able to receive large ships carrying food, water, medicine, and temporary shelters.
More than 30,000 Palestinians have been killed, most of whom are not Hamas. Thousands and thousands of innocents, women and children, girls and boys, also orphaned. Nearly 2 million more Palestinians under bombardment or displacement. Homes destroyed, neighborhoods in rubble, cities in ruin. Families without food, water, medicine. It's heartbreaking. Tonight, I'm directing the U.S. military to lead an emergency mission to establish a temporary pier in the Mediterranean on the coast of Gaza that can receive large shipments carrying food, water, medicine, and temporary shelters. No U.S. boots will be on the ground. A temporary pier will enable a massive increase in the amount of humanitarian assistance getting into Gaza every day.
The US president also called on Israel to do its part. The White House made clear that the decision to open the sea route for aid had come with frustration of what is seen in Washington as Israeli obstruction of deliveries.
Israel must do its part. Israel must allow more aid into Gaza to ensure humanitarian workers aren't caught in the crossfire. And they're announcing they're going to have a crossing in northern Gaza. For the leadership of Israel, I say this: humanitarian assistance cannot be a secondary consideration or a bargaining chip. Protecting and saving innocent lives has to be a priority.
The United States and its allies have expressed increasing outrage over the worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Deliveries by trucks have been interrupted by warfare, looting, and also by Israeli protesters at the Egypt-Gaza crossing. Earlier this week, the US began airdrops. France, Belgium, Jordan, the UAE, and Egypt also airdropped aid. The Turkish Red Crescent too sent its biggest aid shipment yet to Gaza via Egypt, with a ship carrying around 3,000 tons of food, medicine, and equipment. A UN expert said that Israel was destroying Gaza's food system as part of a broader starvation campaign in its war against Hamas. On Tuesday, the World Food Programme said its first attempt in 2 weeks to bring food aid to northern Gaza was blocked by Israeli soldiers. The UN agency said that their convoy of 14 trucks was turned back at a checkpoint.
At the moment, the Israeli cabinet has not taken a decision to open additional crossings. It's fairly factual, and we need more of those. It's been made very clear to me from the outset that there is little willingness, there is concern, as it's stated, over domestic sensitivities when crossings were to open. You've seen sometimes the demonstrations, but in the absence of a deal concerning the hostages, we so far do not get the impression there is a willingness to do more. However, I expect that additional crossings will be opened, also based on my conversations. But I'm not putting my hand in the fire. I've also spoken about the importance of the diversification of the supply routes. Via land, this remains the optimal solution. It's easier, it's faster, it's cheaper, particularly if we know that we need to sustain humanitarian assistance to Gazans for a long period of time. And of course, I've spoken to the importance of opening additional crossings.
Israel has rejected such allegations. It says it's prepared to let in more aid that it has permitted to open 2 checkpoints. Israel instead blames the United Nations and other aid agencies for failing to distribute aid wisely. Meanwhile, in Egypt's capital Cairo, ceasefire talks showed no progress. Hamas left as discussions after 4 days of talks failed to reach a deal just days before the start of Ramadan. Both Israel and Hamas have blamed each other for the lack of agreement. The US says the onus was on Hamas to strike a deal on Israeli hostages. The talks will now resume on Sunday, the expected start of the Muslim holy month.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-Un has issued more threats against South Korea. This time it was during a large-scale artillery firing exercise. North Korean state media said the drills involved units that are capable of striking South Korea's capital, Seoul. Kim was seen in his iconic black leather jacket as he oversaw hundreds of artillery guns and rocket launchers undertake the live-fire drills. These are Pyongyang's second drills this week, only this time it involved much more lethal weaponry. In fact, Kim says these warlike exercises are a direct response to the ongoing drills that South Korea and the United States are currently undertaking. Seoul and Washington are conducting their annual drills with twice the number of troops participating compared to usual numbers. And this year, the exercise is in particularly focused on preparing for the nuclear threat from North Korea.
South Korea and the United States are jointly developing a counter-operation plan against North Korea's nuclear and missile threats, and it will be applied to deter and prevent their further and possible usage of nuclear weapons.
Freedom Shield 24 is designed to be a tough and realistic exercise to strengthen the combined defensive posture and alliance response capabilities based on scenarios that reflect diverse threats within the security environment and lessons learned from recent wars and conflicts, with some of those key aspects focusing on conducting multi-domain operations, leveraging land, sea, air, cyber, and space assets, and countering DPRK nuclear operations.
Now, after these drills began, Kim Jong-un ordered North Korean troops to prepare for war. The artillery drills featured hundreds of long-range systems and a clear message to the South. Experts have raised the threat alert in Seoul after Pyongyang's latest drills. That's because North Korean long-range weapons can strike Seoul and nearby regions, which contribute almost 70% to South Korea's economy. In fact, a study done by military analysts say that North Korea can fire up to 6,000 artillery systems into Seoul at once. And experts say the artillery bombardment poses a grave threat to thousands of civilians in South Korea's capital. Now, this gives Pyongyang the advantage, as intercepting thousands of artillery shells is not possible, particularly in highly dense urban areas. Even retaliatory strikes from the United States and South Korea would be difficult to execute, as North Korea's artillery guns are placed in heavily fortified sites. Experts believe that the rogue nation would prioritize striking civilian targets in South Korea to create chaos and panic, despite it being against the laws of war. And it looks like Seoul and Washington have to prepare for more than just Kim Jong-un's nuclear threats. With 2 wars already underway in the Middle East and Europe, a third one would be catastrophic. And when it comes to the Korean Peninsula, nations are hoping that cooler heads will ultimately prevail. And our next story is from Africa. Gunmen have kidnapped 287 students from a school in Nigeria. A teacher was also abducted by the unidentified gunmen. Now, no group has claimed responsibility for the attack so far. Nigeria has had problems with militant groups who have repeatedly carried out abductions for ransom. However, yesterday's incident is one of the largest mass abductions in the West African nation. The incident took place at a government school in the town of Kuriga of the central state of Kaduna. And the kidnapping happened right after the morning assembly. Several gunmen entered the school compound and started shooting sporadically just before abducting the children and disappearing. Kaduna state authorities said that the gunmen first held the children as hostages before eventually abducting them. A local resident recalled the harrowing incident.
A teacher leading the school assembly was kidnapped. The teacher said he could not run away because some students depended on him for protection. He was kidnapped. A vigilante was also killed while he was trying to scare the gunman away by shooting in the air, but he was killed.
Meanwhile, parents of the abducted children demand answers from the government over the lack of security. A mother shared her grief as state authorities visited the school. Now, the state government has deployed its security forces in the affected area, and the school has been cordoned off, and the search for the kidnapped children is currently underway. Kaduna State's governor met with the grieving parents and assured them of returning their children safely.
Also sat down with the parents of those children that have been kidnapped. Even we have sent a strong message to the mothers, and we made it clear to them that one of the most important responsibilities of the government is to ensure that we protect the lives and properties of our citizens. That by the grace of God, under my able leadership, we will try as much as possible to ensure that every child returns.
Now, in recent years, abductions by armed gangs have been on the rise in the northwestern and central regions of Nigeria. In most cases, the kidnappers use the hostages in exchange for ransom. The latest incident is the second instance of mass abduction in the West African nation just this week. In fact, on Wednesday, suspected militants kidnapped almost 50 women from the country's northeastern Borno state. Now, Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has pledged to crack down on the armed gangs in an attempt to curb the abductions. However, Nigeria's army remains stretched thin as they fight multiple insurgencies across various regions. Will the government launch an operation against the militants, or will they ultimately cave in to their demands? Unfortunately, this story has more questions than answers. Watch this space for updates. And now in South Africa, the story of a 6-year-old Jocelyn Smith who went missing on the 19th of February near Cape Town. The sudden disappearance of the young girl triggered a frantic search in the nearby areas. For 3 weeks, police raided houses and deployed dog squads. Even residents formed communities to take part in the search for little Jocelyn. While the girl has still not been found, there is a new twist to the case that has shaken South Africa to its core. And at the center of this storm is Jocelyn Smith's mother. Our next story explains.
The bond between a mother and daughter is cherished as the most profound connection in the world. Everyone believes in the sanctity of maternal love. But for South Africa's missing 6-year-old Jocelyn, maternal haven turned into a nightmare. On February 19, 2024, Jocelyn allegedly disappeared from her house near Cape Town. This triggered a frenzied search effort in the nearby area. Locals and government authorities combed through every nook and cranny, leaving no stone unturned. From dank sewers to muddy pits, the search extended to even accusing neighbors as desperation mounted. The police, firefighters, and even dog squads were deployed to look for the missing girl. Drones were used so that even an inch of land doesn't go unnoticed. A reward of $5,000 was announced for any sliver of information leading to Jocelyn's whereabouts. Nationwide protests echoed with one question: where is Jocelyn?
We as a mother, lately we cannot sleep. We wonder where the child is. We are so scared to allow our little children to play outside because they will take our children. We just want justice to prevail. Please bring Jocelyn home.
We ask the whole world, the whole South Africa, the whole Western Cape, Holland people come to Saldanha and help us to look for that child.
The fear that Jocelyn might have been whisked away to another city or country intensified with every passing day. The emotions of the people heightened when a blood-stained cloth and a knife surfaced near her residence. While these ominous discoveries were given away for forensic scrutiny, authorities remained tight-lipped about their findings. But the latest twist in the case has left the entire country shocked. The authorities have made their first arrests in the case, and those held and charged include Jocelyn's mother. Kelly Smith has been charged of human trafficking and kidnapping. Her boyfriend and 2 accomplices were also taken into custody.
We are one step closer to ultimately finding Jocelyn, or what actually happened to her. And today is very significant. We have noted the 2 particular charges in terms of human trafficking, but also in terms of kidnapping that was on the charge sheet. And we sincerely trust that the investigation will now unfold in terms of what has happened. But we are still keeping hope alive, knowing that we are wanting to ultimately find Jocelyn unharmed.
The prosecution alleges Kelly callously sold her daughter for a mere $1,000. For now, the details remain murky, whether Jocelyn was sold, delivered, or exchanged. The truth is yet to unfold. Kelly allegedly entrusted her boyfriend with the task. She reportedly urged him to close the deal with a traditional healer. These healers are known for using human body parts in creating magic potions. They promise miraculous cures and fortune. The mother, however, has denied these charges. She says she entrusted her daughter's care to her boyfriend. Kelly claims Jocelyn was unwell and missed school while she left for work. Kelly's boyfriend claims he lost track of Jocelyn and then she disappeared. Tragically, Jocelyn's plight mirrors a broader crisis of violence against women and children in South Africa. According to police statistics cited by the Missing Children South Africa charity, a child disappears every 5 hours, with a quarter falling victim to trafficking or worse. Amidst this bleak reality, what remains is an image of Jocelyn, a radiant smile, piercing green eyes, and meticulously styled hair, awaiting the day she is reunited with those who yearn for her safe return.
That's our show for today. We certainly thank you for spending time with us. We look forward to seeing you right back here again next week. Thanks so much again for watching.